Today we will be talking about domain and range. Now we have been talking about inputs and outputs for functions quite a bit. But usually it's like we ask for a certain value, one specific input, and then we find out what the output for that is. Domain and range refers to all of the inputs or all of the outputs of a function. For example, domain is the set of inputs of a function or all possible numbers that could be used as an input. Range are all of the outputs, all the possible output values of a function. Okay, so this can be very useful because it gives us another way to describe a function without having to have specific information. So when functions get more complicated, it's one way to describe how the function acts. So down here, there's two examples. So most linear functions have a domain of all real numbers and a range of all real numbers. Why is that? Both ends go on for infinity, right? So the domain, the input or x values go all the way to the right. It keeps on going to the right to the infinity, all the way to the left for infinity. Range, this function, as it goes to the right, it keeps on going up higher and higher. And then the left side goes lower and lower. Okay. So that is useful information, but we want to know cases like this. So here we have, it says range. So those are the output values, so our y values. And it says from 0 to infinity. Why is that? The lowest y value is 0. Notice the function never goes below 0 in the output direction. So that's the bottom of the input. And then it goes up to infinity. Both ends keep on going up. That's what these arrows mean. And sometimes I forget to draw my arrows, but that's how they're used. So it gives us an idea about the function without having to say, just say every point. You know, like if the ends go to infinity, it's impossible to say every point, but you can say at least the range that it exists and the domain. Okay, so here's some examples that might be useful. So let's first read this top one. So it said something about 1D. So basically the question is, you work, where do you work? Say you work at a movie theater and you get $12 per hour. Your input is the number of hours, and your output is the amount you make. So the domain are all the possible hours you can work. Now at this company, you can't work, let's say, they don't pay you for like half an hour or just 15 minutes. It has to be whole hours. So the domain for this function, how many hours you worked according to the company says, is all whole numbers. In other words, the numbers 0, maybe you work 0 hours, 1, 2, 3, and dot, 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 dot means keeps on going. So that's the domain. It has to be whole numbers, including 0. The range has to be the multiples of 12, right? Because you get $12 an hour, so you can't earn like a fraction of that. Multiples of 12, that includes 0, 12, 4, 48, etc. So, for example, 5 is not in the range because it is not a multiple of 12. So that's why domain and range can be useful. It explains what is in the function and also what answer it cannot be. And I think it's especially clear in descriptions. Here's another one. This is a function h of t. So, and it's about someone who throws a ball. You can read it yourself. They throw the ball into the air. They're already up on a building. They throw it up. and then it comes back and eventually hits the ground. So the input t is the height, the seconds after you threw the ball, and then the output h of t is the height of the ball. So as you go forward, as time goes on, the ball goes higher and higher, gets as high as 61 feet. It goes down, 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 and gets to the ground. Okay, so let's think about what the domain and range is of this function. So the domain is the time. So it starts at 0 seconds and goes up to 2.95 seconds. So it doesn't go. So the domain, we'll use set notation here, goes from 0 when you throw the ball and goes to 2.95, because after 2.95 seconds it hit the ground, so you're no longer recording it. The range, you have to think, what's the least value for the range? Let's see. If you look here, it goes down to 0. That's the least value, right? Because the ball isn't going to go under the ground. What's the highest value? Well, that's 61 feet. But what about this 45? Is that important for the range? Well, it's right in the middle, so not really. We just want to know what the lowest and highest points. And all these values in between are possible values. So as you can see, it can give us information, right? Like, for example, you want to know how long did the ball travel for? Well, 2.95 seconds. What's the highest the ball was? 61 feet. What's the lowest the ball was? 0 feet. So it gives useful information, and we'll talk much more about domain and range throughout the entire course, but this is just sort of an introduction to it. Please just do your best. Make sure you ask questions if you can. One note, remember you can type on here. Notice this function, this example is a little complicated. Actually, they both are. I actually skipped the most difficult example. Maybe we'll do that in online class. But just here, when it says to label the columns, it says the input is M, the output is P of M. You just want to put that at the top. For example, you put an M here, you put PM of M up here. You just write it like that. You could center it if you want, like that. So just do your best. It's a lot of questions. I think this is more of a challenging assignment, but just ask any questions you have, and we'll go over it thoroughly in class if you need help with that. Okay, good. Just do your best, and I will talk to you next time.